are looking to jump in. Who's it going to be in game number 2, Jacob? Does anybody want to see step up now?
I just want to see great Fortnite games. I don't have my pick just yet. I want to see that after game 3, maybe games 4. I'm going to look at the leaderboard, seeing who I want to see step up. But Kylie and Vico is one of those teams. I love to see them, regardless if they're stepping up, stepping down, building around. They're just one of the more entertaining teams here on EU.
Yeah, and they won this fight off spawn last game, and so you'd like to see them come in and do it again. That Falcon Scout, he wanted to use it, but it didn't actually create an opening for him to be able to use it. Nevertheless, though, for Kylie, of course, we saw him deep into that last game. Didn't have Vico with him, and so I'm sure that will be the goal this time round to turn things in their favor. But for Tilton, they might decide, look, we don't want smoke with these guys. They are just too powerful of a duo. The firepower that Vico and Kylie hold is a very, very scary sight. And so, yeah, they're just going to run out of Slappy. They don't even want those problems. Zara actually is going to run into them as well. So a lot going on here.
Just like yesterday, it continues with the Falcon Scout. People are using it a little bit more and more each and every game, each and every day. Just try to scan, try to get that information, figure out where players are positioned at.
And you said you wanted to know whether or not NA and EU, whether the EU players would be watching and learning from the NA boys. We're seeing more Falcon Scouts, we're seeing more Mythic Pistols. So clearly they were watching yesterday, because that was a ever-present theme in the NA games.
Yeah. It's going to be something I think that you continue to follow suit. Sometimes when you just get that augment for the Mythic Tactical Pistol, you just have to grab it. It's almost a must-have at this stage in the game. As Vexy and the Bull, you see them last very, very long into that last game. 7 eliminations throughout the course of it. And it started here, but man, what a shot. Dropped down to 4 HP. Kenti is in trying to get through the box. They separated these players into 2 different 1v2s, and it already works out with the first one going down.
The Buell was not ready at all when he went knocking on that floor. And the answer was given to him. A big shotgun shot to ruffle some feathers here as Vexy and the Buell, who did so incredibly well in that first game. And now for Vexy, he has to try and do his best to save the game.
And the choice is definitely there for the Totem duo. Do you want to disengage? Do you back off, take what you can get? Or do you know your POI, your landmark, your drop spot, and you know that not many teams are around, which is the important part, is you know that it's empty, you know that you have all the time in the world, you can go straight in. Vexy trying to take advantage, landing a couple of good shots, but it's just not enough.
Yeah, unfortunately for Vexy, they're going to have to wait and watch this game play out. We would have loved to see them sort of do a repeat of what they did in game 1, but it just is not going to play out that way for them.
I like this Axe Force and Vortexers over towards Breakwater Bay. It's not one of those POIs that produces the most insane of results, but it's definitely one of those POIs that has shown if you can come out on top, you can set yourself up for a good game. Nothing else matters. It's Pixie and Delay having a good game last week, unable to keep that consistency up, looking to make some real adjustments throughout the course of the next 6 to try to have just a much better performance, something they can really be proud of at the end of the day. But sticking low to the low ground, not a ton of resources, no minis, no real heals. He's just trying to farm up. So that way, when push does come to shove, he can at least defend himself. He can jump around. He can waste a ton of time before he has to try to go in for the elimination.
Yeah, Vortexes and Axe Force. Definitely a team to watch out for today. Whether or not they win this fight is a different question. I'm sure we'll follow that throughout the day. Of course, these Breakwater Bay fights can be long and drawn out like this one. Nevertheless, though, we have plenty more action taking place all over the map. And sometimes it's hard to follow that action, Jacob. And so fortunately for us, we have the wonderful Taco to update us on the sidelines. Taco, what you got for us this game?
Well, Levin, as it would turn out, there's been a lot of hot drop spot action, and it's not foreign to GloveG and JJ2. They actually managed to secure an elim victory for themselves at their initial drop spot POI, so it'll give them an actual opportunity in round number 2, because in game 1, they were actually eliminated. So excited to see how they keep it moving forward.
Of course, GloveG and JJ2, this is a duo that came 4th in week 1 of the qualifiers, and so they mounted a large amount of series points. They're going to try and repeat that today. And winning off spawn is definitely going to be the pathway to doing that. Winning another fight here would definitely go a long way as well. And so for X-Reese, he will be eagerly hoping that his duo will be able to step up, because he now has been relegated to the spectator slot.
This is honestly a scary sight that we might see with Glubshy and JJ2. Last week, first place. Day 1, first place. Day 2, first place. Overall, first place. Best average placement. Most eliminations, beating out Queasy and Vino by 1. All they have to do is play to that same consistent game plan that they've had up until this point. And you best believe you're going to see them directly into the FNCS Grand Finals.
You'd like to hope so, of course. Snazy and Andalex, we saw their game fall apart towards the end. Right, those moving zones were definitely harsh on them. But this is a very experienced duo. A duo that will always be relevant. The top of the French scene in many, many chapters, many seasons. And I'm a big fan of them as well. I used to always say ALBY LUDVIG every time I saw them on screen. I've sort of moved on from that. But still big fan, big fan.
Hey, we're all fans right now. I'm a fan of, honestly, whoever makes those high-flying, daring, risky plays. Being proactive is the key for me, and that's kind of who I get drawn to. Queasy, Vino going to be one of those teams. Marius and Fred next. They have an opportunity here to try to have that attribute onto themselves. Arthur and Piotr trying to rotate through as well. A lot of these teams, we talked about it to start the day, the split drops, uncontested, disengaging out of the fights instead of getting aggressive for Surge, which means you're going to have to worry about it while you rotate through. Some teams fare well, other teams do not. And this is one of those teams I'm really interested to see after that first game. They only have 4 points so far, where they end up at the end of this one.
Thomas and Malabik will be hoping they can end up much higher in the standings than they did last week. Of course, that first game, not anything incredible by their standards, but definitely a good starting point, a decent foundation. And we're seeing the foundation of what makes up a good game from them here. Of course, looking to base up, create some angles to take some shots. A very similar setup from Seti over here as well. Split up from Cammy in that sense, but they both are positioned on different hills just to cover more angles, cover a larger area, increase their general map control. And they'll be hoping players rotate through this area just so that they can start picking away, taking shots where possible.
Hard fighting Mighty Pelican over here towards Faulty Splits. Still rather congested, about 5 teams still trying to loot up. Plenty of metal to gather. Over on this side is Hardfine just peeking through, waiting for Helix or Tilton, one of these players to get out of position. Peek a little bit too much. That's what he's going to try to attack. This Super Eye, F-Binds just trying to get in the box, fighting deep into the storm. Backs up against the wall. Third-party shots beginning to come in as well. Got to think a 4th party and a 5th party is looming nearby, and you can even see the distance being closed. They're just trying to escape. They're trying to disengage, even if that means going deeper into the zone.
Yeah, and it's always so awkward. There's just so many different teams around, especially when you're trying to find a solution for Surge. You almost find yourself stuck in these little traps with all these different teams causing you different issues. They can often derail your game completely if you're not careful, and that might just be what's happening for them here. F-Binds on the receiving end of some shots from Voltiax and Meza. He obviously didn't go down as forward. They made peace with Hardfine and his duo mate.
Just trying to rotate out as this one goes sort of center in terms of where it's at, but more on the western side. So a lot of these teams having to rotate, so making the conscientious decision to focus on the rotate, worry about Surge later on. Might be fruitful for some. And for iDrop and Mr. Savage over towards Anvil Square, just trying to pick up all the scraps. And honestly, iDrop, he doesn't really need much else. 12 splashes, 3 bigs. I think their focus right now at this stage of the game is going to be looking for Surge. I talked about it moving towards the west, staying a little bit center. So they're hoping for all those teams that are towards the northeast side of the map that they have to go through them in order to get to the zone.
Yeah, and the good thing is that with the zone pulling to the west, that is certainly going to happen. You are going to get a lot of teams rotating their way on in. So there will be opportunities like this one here for iDrop where you can just sit above here and just take shots. He obviously has a bunch of chug splashes as well. They have a lot of shields. And so he'll definitely feel obliged to maybe peek a little bit more than you would do if you didn't have that luxury of extra shields. In the same vein here, Hardfine and Pelican aren't working with match right. Of course, the start to their game was a bit fragmented with an Osborne fight that ended up being a disengage, and so they are desperately trying to find anything, almost a llama in the form of an easy opponent to fight that they can use, setting up for a little box fight situation.
I like the way he's playing this too, staying true to his name. Make it really hard to find which angle he's coming from. But you knock on that door a few times, they're gonna answer. They're gonna answer big. 100 tag right off, making them second guess that decision. Falcon Scout being used, spotting their location, making sure that they know exactly where they're at in every moment. And it's not even in their actual inventory. They're making the decision to kind of drop, quickly use it, and pick it right back up. And that is a lot of teamwork, because if they time that right, they could break through while they don't have their defense is ready. It's hard find continuously trying to stay up against the walls. Mighty Pelican have the high ground, and that's why I asked the question, Levin. When do you give up on the play? Probably never, because you finally get in. Tilt turn goes down, and a huge save from Mighty Pelican. Bait and switch between the two.
Yeah, they were never going to give up on that play, right? They were down below on Surge. They needed to take that fight to keep them in the game, and winning it out was a necessity for them, so good to see that happen.
143 above the damage threshold for Snazy and Andalix. Uncontested, proving to be the key to their early game. They're able to rotate freely, loot up, get the position that they want, and begin to look for Surge. Even though it's only 103, you gotta believe they're just trying to be proactive. JJ2 and Glubshy, you gotta think with the Jelly Angler Augment, just trying to top themselves off. And with the zone moving over towards the west, the chances of all these waters are still going to be there. So you can see them holding on to the fishing rod. That way, if push comes to shove, they can continue to trade for Surge and continue to fish for Jellyfish.
JG2 and Glubshy, they're starting to move their way towards Amble Squad. There'll be a couple teams there. If they can get in, start to refarm, things won't be looking too bad as they make their way into zone. Vico and Kylie, though, on the complete other end. And that different side, way deep in the storm, but making their way on in. That med miss is going to be very, very useful for Vico. Allow him to get up a decent amount as well.
Different change-up of game. In game number one, they got those early game eliminations, feeling comfortable to rotate, not having to worry about Surge. This time around, it's a huge switch-up. Just like Deox and Mappy, 2v1 situation, but Deox is feeling the pressure, getting backed up little by little in zone. Taking tick by tick. Luckily for him, he does have the splashes. Nom's feeling that same bit of comfortability in terms of splashes, but using the last one. Only 100 on the med miss. So he has to think rather quickly about what he wants to do here in this situation, as Mappy and Deox don't want to let this guy escape. This is 4 points. This is a refresh, a siphon. This is resources for them in their endgame. Yeah,
and as good of a setup as they have typically in the early and mid-game. This is such an awkward zone for them, rotating all the way across the southeast side of the map towards the west. They have to cross paths with so many different teams, and to avoid that, they end up spending more materials, more shields, and end up in situations stuck in the zone like this. If they could recover in this game, it would be a sign of what a top team they truly are.
Talk about recovering after that last game. 38 points, at least it's something for Mustache and Tayson. But in their heads, they're worth more than just that. But including week one, Mustache and Tayson have at least 30 points in each of their last 6 games. So even though I'm saying that it's not quite a lot for them, that's consistency. For some of these teams at the top of the leaderboard, they could slip up. And for Mustache and Tayson, they don't have that same trend. This is going to be Frednex and Maris, 29, above the damage threshold. They don't feel safe. They don't feel comfortable at all because they know a gust of wind can blow them right below, and then they have a lot to worry about as they spot Malibuka and Thomas trying to rotate through. That's going to make them a focus. There goes that gust of wind I was talking about. Now they're below. Have to be proactive of figuring out where they're going to get these shots from. They're already at the edge of zone, so they're not going to come very easy as Ref Guard takes down Mighty Pelican. Him and Hellsfire trying to have a much better performance than that last game as well.
Those guys completely blown away at the hands of Hellfire and Ref Guard.
In comes Noms again. Gotta be careful. He is a solo.
I'm not sure if they're aware that he's actually there. I think they might start getting the sound cues in a moment. A replay though of that first Ref Guard limb. much Hardfire can do that.
Yeah, it's just tough. One of those situations to where you get stuck and you're just praying for a miracle, which don't always happen. It's Mr. Savage and I drop. They already have 3 eliminations. Just trying to get in towards zone. Savage is trying to find that sweet spot. I drop just trying to catch up. And that's why you can see him using a lot of his wood, a lot of his soft mats. So that way he can save those hard mats. And when he reunites along with Savage, taking some shots on his way there, instantly popping that shield keg, trying to get the most optimal usage out of it. But that almost gives away the sign that they are weak for any team that is near him.
And Frednex and Marius, they're just going to use the shield keg, right? Of course, sitting in a couple boxes away, they will still be able to pick it up. Now cap them off to 200 HP, and they'll say thank you very much to their Norwegian friends in the lobby.
Whoa.
This is not looking good. Queasy is down. And so it's up to Vino all alone, and he's not looking too hot when it comes to his inventory. You can see obviously that Peely's plunder there, the map, the treasure map, allowing him to find some loot, but again, at this stage in the game, it's very unlikely he'll be able to actually use that. And doesn't have any shields, just sitting at 45 in that regard.
And because he's by himself, wouldn't call it a max pull by any means, but he doesn't even have the choice to rotate first. He doesn't have a shockwave hammer, so he has to kind of wait for everybody else to begin to bypass him before he can make his own decision. As Malibuka and Thomas peeking through the cone, gathering the information. They spot Kylie and Vico on the side. And you'd imagine if they spotted out that the Jelly Angler augment is in use, it goes to show that they might have one less slot, one less item to use to their advantage. It's Kyrie and Pings just trying to get to the zone, much like everybody else. But checking the bushes first this season with the Bush Warrior augment. You got to make sure you check every bush.
Of course, always got to be alert. Even in previous seasons without the augments, right? People would always make sure to do that. Never know who's going to be hiding in a bush. These guys will be hoping that they can find somebody just rotating past them out in the open, because they can certainly do with the damage. It seems like they found their target, but will they be able to connect is the question. Vino now, still in this game, and he's found some shields actually that allow him to get himself up, so not too bad if you ask me. That Peely's plunder, I guess, did come in handy. Didn't think he'd actually be able to find it or use it. But nevertheless, the game goes on for Vino.
At this point, Vino's just saying never say never. And even as a solo, he finds himself a little bit of height, watching his back, just making sure, pick and choose in a lot of these situations. Spots that player inside of the cone, immediately tries to take advantage. That player doesn't even know what he just escaped with Vino knocking on that door, but 20 above. He knows his job's not just done yet. 12 continues to fall, and that's why you see him trying to get proactive, peeking left and right, trying to find anybody showing any sign of their bodies. That way he can try to tag him up.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game for Vino Bron. Vino Bron, Lavino, whatever you want to call him, he has to access his inner GOAT energy if he has any chance of making waves in this game. Thomas HD and Malibuka. A long rotation they'll have to make. The question is, if Malibuka does have a hammer, it might be a bit easier for them. If he doesn't, they're going to have to start getting creative. And you can see already how hungry they are. They realize the opportunity is here. Vico's down. Kylie is trying to run away. And they might just actually catch him out. They have some of the builds here. They have some of the edits. And so as Kylie starts to waltz around these walls that aren't his, he starts to get punished. He will fall as well. They're not the ones to pick it up. And I'm not sure if they'll be able to get the loot either.
Unless they know that player was below him. There was an additional player that was knocked down. They're not going to be able to get any of the loot, like you said. The team that was right near him, shockwaving first, letting them know, hey, we got what we came for. Now we're trying to get out. Kyrie taking a huge tag, trying to get out with the shockwave hammers. And we're seeing that bittersweet effect. Yeah, it's going to get you to the zone, but it leaves you vulnerable as Vino, once again, under pressure. Danger Hero playing a huge role in his survival. 179 above the damage threshold. Somehow, he is making things work as a solo.
Vino is a monster. And it's very hard to stop him at times, but you've got to think he's coming to the end of the road here. He's running out of gas, running out of fuel, and there is not a petrol station anywhere nearby. It's only a matter of moments, the whole lobby looking at him, and Vino eventually will tumble away. But that's not the end of that duo today. Their story will continue.
Set themselves up with a nice cushion. After that game, number one, nobody's perfect. They prove they're human just like everybody else in the lobby. Marius and Frednex, top 10 in each of the last 4 games going back to week number 1. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. These guys just need to hold on to that consistency. Front side of the zone, they have a little bit of height as well. They got themselves a nice recipe to put some damage onto the rest of the lobby. With 3 eliminations so far, got to be sitting with at least a little bit of confidence up until this point.
Yeah, some nice shots being hit there. And we saw these guys posturing for height in previous games. Will they be able to hold on to it? That is the question. Of course, some of the biggest height top dogs are out of this one. For Grows and Fire Hunter, we know they can win games. That's in their arsenal. But when you don't have builds, it's very hard to do so. So a hammer right into somebody's box. Oh my goodness. Grows falls. It was a very, very ambitious attempt. Nevertheless, we like to see those kind of plays be made. Fire Hunter, I'm sure, watching from behind thinking, look, I wanted to hammer you. I'm not sure if I wanted to hammer you there. Nevertheless, I have to keep it moving now. I have to hammer myself and hopefully not into somebody's box. Not into somebody's corner. That is going to be his that he can place down. And he is going to patiently wait. Just wait for people to catch up in the zone. Up above, though, you can see Alby still looking to hold it. Still looking to pressure people. He knows what it feels like to be down below in these situations. But with that mythic pistol in hand, he can keep applying that pressure, keep making it awkward. Malabuka, though, going for a play, a tactic that we haven't quite seen much of in the FNCS, but making use of them augments again. The balloon play, if this works out for Malabuka, I'm going to lose my mind.
I'm not going to say anything other than let's cross our fingers and hope for a huge ending from Malabuka. Drop down low on the height. He doesn't want to wait for the ending. He wants to attack sooner rather than later. But a huge play is not going to work out for them. But I give him an A+ for the efforts. Let me tell you that. As Seti, Cammy letting those eliminations get loose. They get their second of the game. And this is where a team like Seti and Cammy begin to pick up the pace.
This is where they start to show they are legends. Pink and Nebinator still in this game. A better opportunity for them to show what they can do than we saw in game 1. The zones have been more favorable to them, and they've played them perfectly up to this point. They have to keep going, though. Marius, for a moment there, I thought he might try and make a height play. We've seen players do that with a hammer in hand. Needs to get up second height, though. He's going to start getting pressured. There's another team on his layer as well, so not the most comfortable positions by any means. He needs to start moving out. He's going to get boxed up. He's going to get pieced up if he's not careful. He doesn't have auto control here. Barely getting out by the skin of his teeth, but gets struck down again. Fortunately, Mr. Savage is not able to connect, but he will start to connect onto Zara there, and in the process losing eye drop. So now Mr. Savage's hopes of doing something in this game are starting to dwindle. No materials left either.
A slippery fish on a boat gets right and back into the ocean. A Savage is trying to heal. Danger Hero along with the Menmis going to get him up to 100 in no time. He does have some speed boost to work with, using it to perfection to take down Shimoki. Once again, Danger Hero and Menmis, 2 great opportunities for Mr. Savage to make a run of a lifetime. They have 8 eliminations as a duo so far, getting himself into the top 5, but he is the only solo left in the game. Stuck in between a rock and a hard place, but we've seen him there many times before with his back against the wall. Can he get out? LUDVIG, ALBY, still up above. This has been an easier game for them to hold height. With so much chaos down below and players now having to move up that hill. Nebinator will fall, Pink will follow suit as well. That's going to be Zangi taking both of them out. And he might have more to do in this one as well. Zara being taken out there as well. Mr. Savage still kicking it, but for not much longer. Seti and Cammy, they've been able to just sit here and watch. They don't have many eliminations by any means, but these last couple are the crucial ones. No materials means that the hammer play has to come out. They have to be desperate. They have to go for broke in this one now, and a big shot connecting. Alby still surviving, though. Yep, great shockwave hammer. Alby's just going through it. He's surviving, but on a thread as the pressure continues. Now LUDVIG is doing the same, but he has 7 splashes. He can stagger himself in, he can stagger himself out, or he can straight go for the victory royale, taking out both Cammy and Seti.
A brilliant display of a height win from Alby and LUDVIG, playing the zones to perfection, holding on when necessary, and hitting their crucial shots in the final moments against the Polish Titans themselves, the winners of the FNCS Invitational. We know those guys are cold-blooded in these kind of final moments, but still, they were no match for Alby and LUDVIG, who are, again, putting on the show up here.
And you see that cheeky effort from Malabuka yet again. But it goes to show, you take height at at the right time and you hold on to it, you set yourself up for game after game just like this. It's like taking candy from a baby. They're looking down at all these players going through one another on that low ground chaos. Making it look easy.
Look, the amount of eliminations they had, Jacob, it was more than just a bit of candy. It was a whole boatload of candy that they were taking away from everybody in the lobby. And just hitting countless amounts of shots. You see there, even in an uncomfortable position, he's sliding, he's falling, he's still hitting shots, LUDVIG. A brilliant, brilliant game from a duo that I don't think many people at home would have been expecting to see have that kind of performance. But nevertheless, here in the FNCS, the round 3 qualifier 2, they show up.
Yeah, I said it. If those superstars aren't going to rise to the top, these underdogs, these players that are not necessarily trying to make a name for themselves, but just to add on to their legacy, they're going to snatch it away from you.
Brilliantly done from that duo, but there was plenty more to be understood about that game. The best people to do it, Zeke, Vivid, and Mini.
Thank you guys so much. Quite the game this last game, from underdogs finding a victory royale to Malabuka having the party time, you know. Great overall game. EU looking very different than NA East in week number 2.
Very different indeed. Of course, we saw Malabuka using that crazy party time augment to do some crazy plays. I was not expecting that. We haven't really seen that in duos too much. We've seen it in solos in some of the victory cups, but in duos, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was just going to ride that out the entire time throughout that end game. Like,
I love this.
I saw this screen, I was like, you know what? That's a free second place. But you know, Malabuka, he is a playmaker. He tries to go for the quick elim here on the LUDVIG, but unfortunately, apparently, LUDVIG is just way too good, way too aware. Hits that clean shot right there. And on the back foot of actually not going down the Malabuka, they were, of course, able to go ahead and secure that victory royale, which is why we find them on top of the leaderboard now.
First place for this team, Victory Royale. Zeke, they're doing pretty good so far.
Hey, I mean, up 17 places. Ooh. Why not? 137 points after just game number 2. My goodness, ALBY and LUDVIG. Now, again, this is the same question I asked about last game, right? Queasy Vino. It's about momentum, right? You find some victory out, but can you keep those paces moving? Because remember, we're looking for consistency. You can't have one pop-off game. You have to have multiple.
Yeah, you do. And the way to have a pop-off game is, of course, high ground. We saw this team taking high ground pretty early on. But, of course, what gave them the opportunity to do that? Queasy and Venom. They went down. What was it? 3rd zone, 4th zone. They went down very, very early. The barn door was wide open for a team to take on high ground. And who better than ALBY and LUDVIG to take on that challenge? It's 12 eliminations as well. They were able to pick up refreshes and stay on that high ground really, really well. And even use the terrain to their advantage just to sort of let all those players down below sort of battle it out. And then they just rode it out of victory.
Yeah, 100%. As soon as they seen that hill, they were like, listen, just ramp up, get as high as we possibly can above that, stay elevated. But yeah, I just love EU so much, right? Because there's the amount of respect that Queasy and Vino have in these types of lobbies. As soon as they go down and some other team is on the high ground, there's almost nobody that can test them because people are so afraid of Queasy and Vino. But not to take anything away from ALBY, of course. I mean, that game was just played out flawlessly from them. Them getting that free high ground, they able to just build out, make sure that they find those eliminations, find the refreshes. I mean, they played that perfectly.
Yeah, it just shows how much respect, as you mentioned, that Queasy and Vino have, how much confidence that they have that as soon as Queasy and Venom aren't in the game, that is free high ground. We used to have it in EU where we had a few different high ground teams. We had, you know, you could sort of name 5 or 6 teams that were going to go for high, but it just shows how dominant Queasy and Venom are on that high ground, that if they're no longer in the game, nobody else is going to be bothering to go up for it before, because now Queasy and Venom are out. They can just go for it. Anyone can go for it, and it's not like a case of 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. It's anyone's game. And of course, we saw ALBY and LUDVIG playing it very, very well.
Yeah, so what do you guys think happened? Like, because Queasy and Vino, I mean, we watched Vino just be put in a really, really tough spot there, just trying to survive, taking the ire of the entire lobby, saying, okay, you guys are down, just stay out, we want to play a game. So what went wrong for them?
Ultimately, I mean, pressure was on. We saw it when we tuned into Vino. Queasy was unfortunately got picked off throughout that mid game, so something went wrong with the rotate maybe. Some team got a little bit aggressive on them. Just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, tough rotation for them, I think, was the ultimate cause of their elimination. It was one of those situations where I think they've already pretty much qualified through to the grand finals already. They are playing for, you know, confidence. They're playing for that practice, of course, as well. So they'll be able to look at that. They'll be able to think, okay, actually, that was a wrong rotation. Queasy will definitely look at that and think, actually, let's play it out a little bit differently. But I have no doubts that they should already be in grand finals with the way that they're playing.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, it's just about the adaptability, right? Is there anybody, any other duos kind of standing out to you? That last game was absolutely insane.
Yeah, Sarah and his duo partner. Of course, what a fantastic performance in that end game from this duo. An incredible performance because we've seen this duo popping off in certain situations before, but this is one of those games where they just put it all on show.
Yeah, you see him right here. I mean, it looks like a desperate situation, right? 0 builds to actually work with. But in situations like these, you like to stick towards the back of the zone, right? Look for any other players who are in a similar situation to you and find those quick and easy eliminations. So shout out to this duo for making sure that they made the most of that, even though they didn't really have much to work with. Also, I want to shout out, we see him out that end game right now while we're checking out Zangy, Cammy, and Seti getting that second place that game as well. Again, playing from that low ground.
Yeah, huge performance from those guys, of course, on that low ground play. Unfortunately, they didn't quite close out with the victory, but with how Cammy and Seti are playing, we mentioned it at the beginning of the show, they can keep those consistent placements going. And of course, second place, they will take that. Not too crazy on the eliminations, 11 so far, not quite matching that of Alby and Kobe, but what a performance from them.
Yeah, I mean, also Mr. Savage, right? Finding themselves there. That solo effort, right? Again, it's these little things, right? We just need to make a couple games like this, string together a few eliminations, and we could actually try and secure ourselves a spot in grand finals.
That's what it's all about, right? Every single placement that you gain throughout these weeks, it's all about the series points. You want to make sure that you can find yourself in the grand finals and ultimately that global championship.
Yeah, of course, we saw Mr. Savage, of course, clutching up as a solo right there. We've seen him do that before, way back on this region, right? Everyone remembers the clip. And of course, not quite having the same success in that one, but of course, iDrop will be so happy with how Mr. Savage is playing because he's such an incredible solo player. He trusted him right there.
Yeah, 4 more games, right?
Yeah.
It's still good. We're still fine. 4 more games here in EU. How is it all going to go? Let's find out. I don't want to keep you waiting. This is game number 3.